welcome back to another Geeky What video, and today I'm going to be taking you over quite a high-end KABYLAKE build. You can see the PC running behind me here and also 3D Mark V Strike on this monitor straight from the computer in this video. But let's kick it off with the parts I chose and why, and then I'll finish off with some benchmarks so you can see the kind of performance you can be expecting from this build. In terms of the CPU, I went for Intel's Core i5-7600K. It's an overclockable i5 chip. It's at the higher end of the i5 spectrum and has a really fast base frequency. It is overclockable, and given the cooling in this build as well, you can overclock it absolutely no problem. It's a superb CPU, and it's going to allow, it's not going to give any bottlenecking. If you wanted to add another graphics card in later on down the line, then you can do so, and the CPU isn't going to cause you any problems. It's also decent for a bit of live streaming, a bit of video editing as well, After Effects and Premiere, a great CPU overall. Now, to keep the CPU cool and allow for some good overclocking, I went for Cooler Master's Sidon 240V. Now, this is one of their lower end liquid CPU coolers, however it certainly does the job. It's got a 240mm radiator, 2x120, and it allows you to have fans in push-pull, so 2 on the top and 2 on the bottom, to keep that CPU really nice and cool. What that's going to mean is as well, if you water cool in that CPU, you've got that radiator installed, it's not going to have much effect on the air coming into the case, isn't going to make it much hotter, so all that air then has to do is cool your graphics card and your motherboard and that kind of thing, which is going to give you really good thermals overall. In terms of the motherboard, I went for a Z270 motherboard, which supports these brand new KABYLAKE chips and allows for some overclocking. I went for MSI's Z270 Pro Carbon. Not only does this motherboard look so sick, I've also got a review of it on the channel which you can check out up here now. This motherboard's really great. It gives a very conclusive I/O. It's got 2 onboard USB 3 headers, one which is right angled to give really nice cable management options. It's got reinforced RAM DIMMs as well, which is a bit overkill but looks pretty sick, and also has the metal around the PCIe lanes to allow for that as well. It also includes a high bandwidth SLI bridge in the box. If you wanted to add another GTX 1070 in, you can do so absolutely no problem. RAM is always an easy choice. Because it's a KABYLAKE, you need DDR4 memory of course, and you don't need to obsess too much about clock speeds given that you can actually overclock RAM anyway. Now, I went for a DDR4 2400MHz kit, which is of course supported by our motherboard. 2 8GB DIMMs, of course there's Vengeance LPX memory is perfect. I recommend this RAM so much because I've used it for so many years, the DDR3 and DDR4 variants, and never had a problem. It's always performed very well. It's always had good compatibility from gaming to editing. It's just a great choice, and that's why I recommend it so much. This wasn't sent to me for free, unlike some of the other components in this build, and it's just an incredible choice. As with everything, I'll leave it linked in the description below, and you can also get this in a range of colours as well to kind of fit any colour scheme you're going for. For the GPU, this was another easy choice. The GTX 1070 really is the best card going at the moment, with a good cross between value and also performance. It isn't a cheap card by any means, but can certainly handle not only 1080 and 1440p, but 4K up to 60 frames per second, which you'll see in the benchmarks in a minute in this video. It's a great card. This one is from Asus, but MSI also do a fantastic version as well. Overall, it's an incredible card. It's very good thermally. It looks insane, fits nicely in the case, and it has RGB customization everywhere so that you can actually choose whatever colour you want for this. Overall, it's an incredible GPU, fantastic I/O, VR support for the next couple of years as well, even as VR headsets start to get more demanding in the specs department. Just a really lovely card overall. Storage is always a tricky one with builds and often depends on who you are and your needs. Now, for editing, I always say you want a couple of SSDs and a few hard drives, but for gaming, a 2TB hard drive from Seagate, the Seagate Barracuda drive, 7200 RPM. It's as fast as your mainstream consumer hard drives get, but isn't going to excel in terms of speed of an SSD. And for that, I went for the Samsung 850 EVO 256GB. And now you'll install your Windows OS, your most frequently used games, applications and important files on the SSD, and then you've got that hard drive, so if you wanted a copy of important documents, you can have those there, and also install your Steam library, your movies, your music and your games on that hard drive for a much wider amount of storage. Also, it means that if you did have disk failure, say your hard drive died in 2 or 3 years, with something like Steam or Origin, it's all synced online anyway, so it isn't really going to cause you much of a problem aside from having to buy a new hard drive. You can go for the Western Digital Blue as well if you wanted to. They're both priced very comparably, however the Seagate drive is one I've had better experiences with in terms of reliability. In terms of the case, this is also another one that's kind of down to personal preference. This is where I kind of splashed out on this build, and Cooler Master recently sent me their Master Case 6. Now, this case is phenomenal. You'll be able to see the review on the channel once again in the card section now. From its aesthetics, you can kind of raise and lower the front and top panels to allow for more increased or reduced airflow and acoustics, that kind of thing. It's not compromising in terms of colour schemes, so you could set the RGBs in this build to any colour whatsoever and it'll still look fantastic. You haven't got any bright green or orange or red or yellow or anything like that on this case. So any colour that you want, this build is more than capable of doing, and I did that of course on purpose. That black RAM isn't going to compromise anything. This case is superb. It is on the larger side, so if you wanted something smaller, NZXT's S340 is a fantastic option. However, this case is just phenomenal. It allows you to buy things off Cooler Master's website to modify the case. You can buy like LED strips that are magnetic and connect via SATA. You can add extra hard drive cage, remove hard drive cages for better GPU support. Just incredible. Talking of hard drives, it supports about 6 or 7 hard drives depending on where you want to mount them. 2 SSDs as well on the kind of hard drive shroud and shield. You've got plenty of room in terms of power supply length, so you can have a really long power supply and get rid of the hard drive sled there, or you can have a shorter one. Just a bunch of options, and I can't praise Cooler Master enough on this one. Another element of this build which comes from Cooler Master is their V750 power supply. Now many people go, oh, I need loads of power. You don't. It's got one graphics card that takes a single 8-pin power cable. Your motherboard just needs 2 4-pin CPU power blocks, and aside from some of all the fans that you might need to connect via Molex, or some of the accessories that might need SATA power, there's really nothing that's going to consume loads of power from this build. So this power supply will not only give you enough power for this build, but also allow you to add another hard drive, a bit more RAM, and even a second GPU if you wanted later on. 750 watts is more than enough, and this V750 is not only reliable, it's 80+ gold certification, but also save you money at the wall, and is relatively compact with a fully modular interface. You only plug in the cables that you need, no excess cable clutter. It comes very well presented, just a fantastic option. But that almost wraps it up. There are a couple of extra things I bought as well for this build that are completely optional. Some Silverstone power supply cable extensions, just these red and black ones look phenomenal. You can get them in a load of colours, plain black if you wanted as well, to continue with that non-compromising all blacked out scheme with those RGB LEDs. I also went for those LED strips that I mentioned from Cooler Master. You can get them off their website, and they're magnetic, very bright. I went for some white ones to light the case up a little bit, but you can go for different colours as well if you wish. Now I'll leave links to everything of course for Amazon in the description below for all countries, international, UK, US, all that kind of thing. But let's roll some benchmarks, and yeah, that's it. And that wraps it up. As you saw, the benchmark numbers are phenomenally impressive. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe. Share this on Facebook and Twitter, that would be hugely appreciated. And make sure to check on the channel for a couple of giveaways that are currently happening or are going to happen in the next few days. So make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss those. Once again though, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next GeekOut video.